If your goal is to build bigger legs in the shortest amount of time possible, you've got to focus on the exercises that give you the best ROI on your time in the gym. Think of your legs as a house, your quads as a shed, and the workers as the muscles you're recruiting to do the work. Performing isolation exercises, for example leg extensions and hamstring curls, is like hiring 10 workers to build the house and telling 8 of them to work on the shed. Sure, you may eventually end up with a nice shed, but the house will never get done. Now, imagine if you hired 100 workers to build the house, then told 20 of them to build the shed. Both jobs would get done faster. Focusing your efforts on the big 4 lower body movements we are discussing today is like hiring 100 workers instead of 10. Are you ready to build your dream home? Let's jump into the what, why, and how of these 4 lower body mass builders. The movements that, if done correctly, will not just pack slabs of muscle onto your legs, but will result in brute strength and stronger, more resilient joints that improve health and longevity. Now, before we jump into the big 4 lower body mass builders, let's quickly run through exactly what muscle groups are involved and what functions they're responsible for. First, we have the quadriceps, arguably the most aesthetic of the lower limb musculature. The quads are made up of 4 muscles: the vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius, and the rectus femoris. All of the muscles act together to perform knee extension, with the rectus femoris also being responsible for hip flexion, or bringing your knees towards your chest. Next, we have the hamstrings, which are the meaty muscle group on the back of the upper leg opposite the quads. The hamstrings are split into 3 muscles that act together to perform knee flexion, or bringing your heel towards your glutes, and hip extension, or bringing your leg behind your body. The hamstrings are also really important when it comes to injury prevention, as they are fundamental to stability at the knee joint. Lastly, we have the glutes, which are one of the most neglected muscle groups in men. The glutes are comprised of 3 heads: the gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, and gluteus minimus. The main functions of the glutes are hip extension, hip abduction, external rotation, and posterior pelvic tilt. With all this in mind, let's delve into the best 4 exercises to target these muscle groups and maximize leg growth. Number 1. Back squats. When it comes to building a huge set of legs, there's no exercise more effective than the squat. Squats elicit extremely high muscle activity in all of the main lower body muscles, from the glutes and quads to the hamstrings and even calves. This is not to say that you can't build big legs without squatting. You most certainly can, but we're looking for the big bang for your buck exercises. The exercises that are going to pack the most meat onto your frame in the shortest amount of time. It's no surprise that carrying a heavy load on your back, squatting down with it, and then standing back up again is going to put some serious mass on every muscle in your legs. But the benefits of squatting don't end there. Squats, when done correctly, will strengthen the connective tissue around the knees, increase flexibility and mobility. They'll help you run faster and jump higher, and if that wasn't enough of a reason to squat, it's an incredibly effective core workout as well. Done incorrectly, however, can compromise knee stability, or even worse, result in serious spinal injury. But don't worry, as long as you use proper form, you won't have to worry about injuring your back or knees. A few things you want to avoid when squatting: stopping before you reach proper depth, too wide of a grip on the bar, rounding your lower back, leaning way too far forward, pushing through your toes or the balls of your feet instead of the heels, and letting your knees collapse inward. The list of blunders is long, but avoiding them is easy. To perform this exercise effectively, set the bar in between your traps and rear delts. Keep your chest up and upper back tight, heels shoulder width apart, and feet pointed outward slightly. Fix your eyes on a spot on the floor to keep your neck and spine safe. Squat down by pushing your knees out and hips back and down. Once you've reached parallel or slightly below, squat up by pushing your heels into the ground and driving your hips straight up. Number 2, front squat. The front squat, similar to the high bar back squat, places the knees in a deeper degree of flexion, which leads to higher quad activation. Research comparing levels of knee flexion on quad activation have proven this to be true. As well as being more quad dominant, the front squat also leads to less stress on the lower back. Not only that, but research by Brett Contreras and colleagues has led to an interesting finding. The authors concluded that, and I quote, "Despite requiring lighter loads, the front squat may provide a similar training stimulus to the back squat, making this an ideal leg exercise to include in your training for more volume, particularly for the quads. When it comes to the setup, there are a couple of different grips we can employ. If you possess the mobility necessary for the Olympic front rack position, I'd recommend going that route. If, however, you lack the mobility, a cross-arm setup will work just as well. Simply place the bar across the front delts and crisscross the arms over. Make sure to keep your arms parallel to the floor, otherwise the bar may begin to shift forward, causing you to lose your balance. Number 3, RDL. Up next, we have arguably the best overall posterior chain builder, the Romanian deadlift. Unlike the squat, the RDL focuses on the hamstrings as it's purely a hip extension movement. This is why the exercise is so effective at targeting both the glutes and hamstrings, as they are both responsible for hip extension. Research has also confirmed that when it comes to building bigger hamstrings, RDLs elicit near maximal hamstring activation. The Romanian deadlift differs from the conventional deadlift in a few ways. Firstly, it's a pure hinge movement, meaning that the hip joint stays at the same height throughout the exercise. Secondly, the barbell stops roughly 6 to 8 inches above the ground, eliminating the possibility of using momentum to aid in the lift. A few common mistakes to avoid when performing this exercise are keeping the knees locked, not keeping the bar close to the body, bending forward instead of pushing the hips back, not keeping the chest up, and going way too far down. To perform this exercise correctly, walk up to the bar and stand with your midfoot underneath it, feet shoulder width apart, and feet pointed forward. If your shins are touching the bar, you're too close. Grab the bar at shoulder width with a double overhand grip and deadlift the bar into a standing position. Once you're standing upright, soften your knees to begin your descent. Instead of bending forward, push your hips back until the barbell is 6 to 8 inches above the ground. From there, push your hips forward and squeeze your glutes to return to an upright position. Make sure your back remains flat or in a neutral position through the entirety of the lift. Number 4, hip thrusts. Last but not least, we have the hip thrust, the king of all glute builders. The hip thrust is wrongly seen as a woman's exercise, but this couldn't be further from the truth. The hip thrust effectively hits both the glutes and upper hamstrings, which will not only give you a bigger, stronger set of legs, but also lead to a stronger squat, something which will ultimately lead to bigger quads. Seems like a pretty gratuitous cycle if you ask me. To perform this exercise, place your shoulder blades on the bench and have the bar placed across your pelvis. Brace your core, drive through your heels, and squeeze your glutes to lift your hips. At this point, your shins should be perpendicular to the floor and your shoulders and knees should be in line. Bring the bar back down under control and repeat. And there you have it. The top 4 lower body mass builders for putting the most amount of muscle on your legs in the least amount of time. The bottom line is this: building size and strength doesn't require a barrage of different exercises to hit a muscle from various angles. It only requires that you continue to get better over time with a handful of exercises that challenge each muscle group effectively and efficiently. The more frequently you perform these movements, the better you'll get at them. The more efficient you become at the exercise, the easier it becomes to lift more weight. The more weight you lift, the bigger your legs will grow. Did you find this video helpful? Click the like button below as it'll truly help out the channel. Tell me, what lower body mass builder would you add to this list and why? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you want more science-based videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel and do not forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next one. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.